hearing a lot about branched chain amino acids, so I want to make a quick video and break down what they are and why you might be interested in them as a runner. But first of all, quick synopsis. From what my research and the chemistry tells me, there are three big reasons why branched chain amino acids have benefits. The first one is for muscle recovery. The second one is as a form of energy. And the third one is in terms of overall hydration. So now with that, I want to go into each one of them and break down it more specifically what's happening in the body and how the chemistry works. But first, what exactly is a branched chain amino acid? So what I have here is a generic formula for a amino acid. And the way it works is you have a acid end here, which is your carboxylic acid, your C double bonded to an O, and your OH over here. You have a amine group, which is your NH3 plus, and then you have some set of something on the other side designated by R, some other set of functional groups. Every amino acid has this structure, an amine group and an acid component. What makes them different is what this R group could look like. This R group could be a strand of, for instance, 4 carbon atoms in a line. It could look like that. Or those same four carbon atoms could actually be arranged differently in a structure that looks something like this. You have 1, 2, and then you have this branch component. So when your carbon chain has a configuration like this, where there's some sort of branch, and there's other ways to create this, that's what makes it a branched chain amino acid. But at the end of the day, they are amino acids, which come back to the first benefit, which is muscles. Amino acids are the building block of protein. Protein is the building block of muscles. That's why amino acids are important. That's why you have essential amino acids. What makes branched chain amino acids particularly interesting is that these amino acids, their properties, make them particularly good at building protein that builds muscles. Therefore, when you think about running, when you think about any activity, especially weightlifting, where you see BCAAs in a large degree, you're breaking down muscle. You need to recover in order to build those muscles back up. The way the muscles are rebuilding themselves is with amino acids that are making protein. Having a ready supply of branched chain amino acids in the body are going to help those muscles build up and get you back to what you were before you strained and broke down the muscles. Second key benefit when it comes to energy. So we've talked about before that in the body there are two main pathways by which the body creates energy. The first one is by burning sugar, that's called glycolysis, and the second one is by burning fat through fat metabolism. Each one of those produces ATP, which then becomes the energy currency your cells use for basically every activity in the body. As it turns out, glycolysis and fat metabolism account for about 90% of the ways that cells actually make energy. The other 10% is that the cells are actually capable of breaking down protein in order to make energy. And the way they do that is protein can be broken back down into these amino acids. And in the presence of certain enzymes in the body, this amino acid group can get converted into a structure that looks like this, where what's happening is your nitrogen group, your amine group is getting broken off. This process is called transamination. It's removing this group, replacing it with an oxygen. And this structure here is called a alpha keto acid. It's an acid because it still has this acidic group here. It's a keto because this structure in chemistry, where you have a C double bonded to an O with these chains here, is called a ketone. And this might start sounding familiar if you know a little bit about the ketogenic diet or ketosis or those type of terms. When your body can convert muscles to protein to amino acids to structures like this, this molecule can then be fed right back into the same metabolic pathways by which your body breaks down fat to create ATP and energy. Therefore, about 10% of the time your body creates energy, it's through a pathway like this. And that's why this particular benefit is starting to really gain a lot of traction in sports drinks or sports bars, sports nutrition, because the science, the chemistry would say that if your body has free branched chain amino acids floating around or free amino acids floating around, they can be readily converted to energy as a form of energy when you're doing intense physical activity. You run out of sugar, it takes longer to burn fat. This can be another quick way to get energy, the same way the sugar is a quick way to burn energy. That's the chemistry of why it's working, because you're breaking this back down into the structure the body needs to feed back into the metabolic pathway. Okay, now the last benefit, which is the one I've read about that is really starting to gain a lot of traction, is this idea around hydration. And the way this works is that if you look at your typical sports drink, such as Powerade or Gatorade, the way hydration's happening is that it's taking electrolytes, sodium ions, potassium ions, things that you've heard about, and they're bonding to a substance, and is bringing those into the cellular membrane, and that's how they're bringing the water and the electrolytes back into the cell. This substance they typically bond to is a carbohydrate such as glucose. That's how it's working. They bond to a substance that attracts these positive ions of, Na plus, K plus, binding to glucose is bringing them into the cell. It turns out, if you go back to our structure of an amino acid, these same ions can bond to an amino acid. And in particular, this acidic end here can make an ionic bond to either your sodium ions or your potassium ions, or whatever other electrolytes you want to have in your drink, create a salt between these two elements. And this molecule can then also be used to bring these electrolytes into the cellular membrane. And so there's quite a lot of science out there. There's a couple links that I'll put into the blog, which talks about studies showing how this can be a very effective hydration mechanism that rivals even the pathway of using carbohydrate as a way to hydrate the body. Okay, so in summary, branched chain amino acids have been around for a long time. They're nothing new. They've been big in the weightlifting community for decades, mainly around the ability to help rebuild muscles quicker after intense exercise or their intense activity. You're starting to see them pop up a lot more in other sports, especially endurance sports, because there's a belief, there's theory, there's science that backs it up, there's studies around it being an energy pathway. And then finally, there's a lot of new emerging research saying that this could be another effective way to have hydration, maybe even a fast form of hydration than your traditional sports drinks because of the properties of the amino acid. 3 big benefits of branched chain amino acids. It's always the number one way to get amino acids, any amino acid into your body, is through a healthy, balanced diet, protein, vegetables, fruits, all the common things. If you want to take it a step further, that's where supplementation can come into play. But first and foremost, make sure you're eating good. If you do that, you should be able to get all the amino acids that you potentially need. As always, we do these videos because the more you know, it's important to know what you take, because the more you know, the faster you can run.